We often talk about traveling in our Class B RV, which is sort of living the van life whenever we can. But we haven't really talked a lot about where we stay when we're traveling. And there's really different ways to do that, everything from camping to boondocking to moochdocking. So maybe we should break that down a little bit.
So for instance, when you're talking about camping, there's a lot of different options, whether that's an estate park or a private campground or even like an RV resort. You've got a lot of different options when it comes to making a reservation, having an actual campground spot, with whether you have full hookups or no hookups. But usually those are traditional what people think of as campgrounds.
And then what we like to do a lot whenever we can is what's known as boondocking, which is you don't have hookups. You're not in a campground. You're probably in a campsite area, depending on where you're at. So there's a difference. Like, we're in Michigan a lot. That's where we're at right now. And when we go up to the national forest in northern Michigan, there's a lot of land there where you can get into the national forest and you can kind of see where there's been camping before, right? People have cleared out a little bit of an area. You can tell where there's been folks. Out west, you're going to see more of the BLM land where it's just wide open spaces. You're still going to be able to see, I think, where people have been camping, but it's a lot more scattered and dispersed than what you see in a place like Michigan.
Well, and traditionally, those are non-reservable sites, too. You just pretty much pull up and you find someplace that fits the needs of so your trailer, your van, or whatever it is that you have. Whereas more of the campgrounds usually require some sort of a fee. Even like the state forests or national forests here in Michigan, some of them do require a fee. So when we say boondocking, to us, that usually means free camping somewhere. And that can be something as easy as a Walmart or a Cracker Barrel as well, too. I know a lot of people consider those boondocking. We just traditionally consider those overnight spots.
Yeah, I don't like to spend more than, part of a night, really, at a Walmart or a Cracker Barrel because you don't want to overstay your welcome, essentially. And that becomes a problem later when people see people camping with all their equipment out and things in a Walmart parking lot. Then it leads to them not wanting to have overnight parking. And we really use those more like we're on our way somewhere. We need someplace just to stay in and stay overnight to get some rest and maybe grab some supplies at the Walmart in the morning, or biscuits and coffee at the Cracker Barrel is always a good way to go. But then there's also what we refer to as moochdocking, which is essentially mooching off of your friends and family by staying in their driveway or on their property some way. And we just did that on one of our trips that we took, and we were down in Florida. We moochdocking in a couple of different places. And the first place we stopped was at my brother and sister-in-law's house. They live in Melbourne, Florida. And so that was great to be able to see them. A couple of things, though, like I thought you kind of want to be prepared if you're going to moochdog. So everybody's property is different, and everybody's driveways in particular are different. We've talked about that a lot about, okay, what is their driveway like?
Well, and yeah, we joke that our kids down the road, we're going to know whether they really love us or not by the type of house that they buy and whether it has a level or a very steep driveway, because that will depend on how often we can visit them. So we do sort of joke about that, but that is something that most everybody needs to take into consideration if you are going to visit friends or family. How long is their driveway? Are you going to hang out over the sidewalk or into the street? Is it level? Where might be an electrical plug or a water plug, water hookup if you need that type of thing. So there are just a lot of considerations to take, but the good thing is it means that you can get out there and you can visit those friends and family that you might not have been able to otherwise, whether it's they don't live in an area where there's a lot of hotels, or they live in an area where there are a lot of hotels, but they're super expensive. So this gives you an opportunity to be closer to them, but not necessarily living with them.
You also have to be careful about what environment they live in terms of city or rural. Do they have a homeowners association that maybe doesn't like to have RVs overnight, that sort of thing? In my brother's situation, their street is really level. Their driveway is not. But they don't like overnight parking on the street there. They don't really allow it, especially for larger rigs. Not that ours is big because it's a small van. It's a Class B RV. But still, we couldn't be overnight. So we ended up in the driveway. We got back as far as we could, so we weren't over the sidewalk, trying not to cause any issues. But that meant that we were on a driveway that wasn't very level. So I wanted to mention this because you want to kind of be prepared. What do you need to be ready with? We always travel with leveling blocks. And in our case, we have a 3-way refrigerator that needs to be level to run well and not cause damage to it. If you have a compressor-driven fridge, that may not be as big of an issue for you. I always carry extra extension cord. And in particular, we have 30 amp service in the van, and so I have a long 30 amp cord. But I also carry a heavy-duty 20 amp extension cord because I knew, for example, at my brother's house, we were plugging into a regular outlet in their garage. So we were going to have just 20 amp service. We weren't going to have a 30 amp plug. So I have the adapter, I have an extra long extension cord, that kind of thing. Just sort of think about your needs in terms of the rig, power, and water, like you talked about, and being level. What can you bring with you? I often joke with people, and I told my brother, we're the best house guests you can have because we bring our own house. But that means being prepared with some of the supplies you might need to get yourself set up.
In addition to bringing your own supplies, you just need to also be prepared to help around the house as well. That's something that we always try to do when we ever go to friends or family and we are moochdocking. So whether that's helping them with house projects, taking care of things around the house, making your own meals, buying them dinner, buying supplies, even possibly paying for water or sewer if you're using that type of thing at their house. Being as good of a house guest as possible, because I know when we went, we were all still working. All 4 of us were working our full-time jobs the entire week that we were there. Now, what's really cool is all 4 of us work remotely. So we kind of scattered out throughout the house. I was out by the pool. You were in the lanai. Your brother and sister-in-law both have their respective offices. So we really didn't see each other all day. And then we'd come together for dinner at night. And that was just really cool because we weren't really imposing on them at all because we didn't really see each other other than dinner. And it was more just like, hey, company's over for dinner. And we were able to provide and help supply the food and make the meals and help out around the house, at night or in the mornings before we each went to our respective office spaces.
And it doesn't have to be any big project that you have to tackle for somebody. I mean, we will moochdock at your grandma's a lot of times, and we never get out of there without doing yard work, which is great. I don't mind doing that at all, and we're helping her out. My brother had an issue with his garage door where it wasn't closing on its own, and I realized pretty quickly it was probably the security sensor or the emergency sensor that doesn't let things, get crushed by the garage door. I happened to know that was a problem because my garage door did the exact same thing. It was a really easy fix. He was really impressed. I was like, this was really not that hard because I'd already been.
Don't tell him that.
I'd already been through that problem personally, so that was great.
We also helped them move some furniture. They were trying to get a new rug, a new bedroom set, and so that was actually really nice because I think they thought they could do it themselves and realized that was going to be nearly impossible. So it worked out just perfect timing that we were there and able to help do that. So I just felt really good about it that we had our own little house out in the driveway, but we were still hanging out with them for the week, and that was just really fun.
You bring up a really good point, though, too, about working versus being on vacation. We work remotely. They happen to be able to work remotely. So we were doing that during the day. When you visit someone, it's not like you're necessarily on vacation, nor are they. And so don't expect them to be your tour guides for the week. Sure, they might have a favorite restaurant they want to go out to, and that's fun to do that at night. There's something that they might like to do in an area, and maybe they'll be able to go with you or maybe not. We did a couple of things while we were in that area of Florida that you really got a big kick out of because they're, stuff that you like to do. And one of them was visiting downtown Melbourne. It's not very big, but it had 2 of your favorite things there.
Manatees and ice cream.
Not at the same time. That sounds a little weird.
True.
No manatees with the ice cream. But yeah, you, of course,
found had we found the ice cream first, we could have then had ice cream with the manatees.
Okay, that's true. So, of course, if you've watched this channel at all, you know that we will find ice cream if there is ice cream to be found. So we found some great ice cream in downtown Melbourne. And then they have a marina there in town that is really well known for the manatees coming and going from the ocean because that's where they kind of want to hang out when it's a little bit warmer in that water.
So the boat marina is actually connected to the Indian River where the manatees hang out and then they have access out to the Atlantic. But certain times of the year, especially when it's cold, and we were down there when it was still relatively chilly, the manatees are taking refuge in the marina or in the river. And it just so happened that the Saturday we decided to go wander down there. We were looking, we didn't see anything. We actually saw a dolphin playing around, and then we started to wander away. And something caught out of the corner of your eye, and we turned around and looked and saw this ripple through the water. And we just kind of watched it for a while, and sure enough, it came up to the surface and you could see the snout of the manatee surface. So we followed him for a ways, and it was really cool. And then again, we went to leave, turned around and realized this whole pack or herd, I'm not sure what you call it, a group of manatees, a pod, something. I know it's not a murder, but it's closed. A lot. There were 12 of them, all coming. Grandpas to babies and everything in between. And it was just really cool. So we were standing on the edge of the marina, and this whole group of manatees just sort of slowly swam by us. They were surfacing, so you could see their nose and their tail. And it was just really cool. I think it's not something, normally you see them in an aquarium or a zoo of some kind. And in this case, we were actually seeing them just out in their natural habitat. And that was just really awesome.
The other advantage to staying in that area of Florida, which is Melbourne, is where they live, is we're right near Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. It's not that far away, at least, to drive down there. And as luck would have it, there was a launch that was going to happen while we were in the area.
I'm a big, actually both of us are big NASA buffs, big space geeks, and I'd been tracking for a while that there was a launch going to take place while we were down there. So we drove up to Jetty Park, which you've probably heard of before. It's a perfect place right south of Cape Canaveral. Very popular. It's always been a popular place to watch launches from because you are just over the canal and this berm, and then the launch pads are right there. So maybe 10 miles away, if that. So we drove up to Jetty Park. It was probably, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And essentially for an hour, we just stood there waiting with all these other space geeks waiting for the rocket to launch.
Yeah, it was it's the Falcon rocket with the Dragon space capsule that was going up to the International Space Station.
You got it?
Oh my gosh.
I got it. Yeah.
Oh! Oh!
Here we go. I can't even lift my.
Oh, wow.
I can't. Well, we're a lot closer than we were before, Donnie.
Yes. Awesome, isn't it?
Are you videoing it?
So it was kind of neat. We got to see it launch, and then because of the way they do those, the boosters actually come right back down and land. We got to see both of that. It was a really neat experience. I've never seen a live launch. You've seen the shuttle go off before, which is really cool. So that was a really neat way to do it. It was a great location.
Jetty Park is the place to go if you can't get out onto Cape Canaveral itself, because either it's really expensive to tickets or it's full. So Jetty Park is a good place to watch it from. And if you've never seen a rocket launch, get down there and see one sometime. I know there's more and more going up, and we're starting to hopefully get toward where we're putting humans back into our space stations and not relying on the Russians. So, but get down there and watch a launch. I did see a shuttle launch a number of years ago. Discovery went up, and it's just, you can't even describe it. It's just the feel of when it launches and like that sound wave comes across and hits you, or in this case, when the rockets come back down, you get that sonic boom as it's like coming back through the atmosphere. It's just amazing. And a night launch is even more impressive, I think, because you can see it so much longer than you can during the day because of the light and the rocket and the fire and everything. And I don't know. I could talk about it all day long just because I love it so much. It's so cool.
Well, and we talked about while we were there going back, if there's going to be another launch and timing works out for us, because Jetty Park does have the campground. It's nothing fancy from what I saw, but I think it would be worth totally spending a few days there and being in a prime location where you could, be camped and walk over and watch a rocket take off. That would be pretty cool. So that's something to consider in the future too.
The future is clearly key because none of us are traveling right now. But these are just some options to think about when you do finally get back out there on the road. What kind of camping do you like? What kind of options does it give you if you can stay with friends and family so that you can see more places and spend more time with them?
Unfortunately, with the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us are under stay-at-home restrictions and we're not traveling, which is unfortunate. But if you have some downtime right now while you're stuck at home, look at places to go camping later, like one of the state parks in Michigan. We have a playlist that I'll link to below. We visited all 103 state parks in Michigan last year and did a video review of each of them. So take a look if you have some time on your hands and are looking for some place to go once the travel restrictions are lifted.
Yeah, so while you are stuck at home, now would be a great time to subscribe to our channel so you can go back and watch all 103 of those videos, as well as the other videos that we have done on tips and tricks for boondocking or camping in a small van. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when our next videos are up and when we are finally back out on the road traveling. We're super excited to get out there, and I'm sure you are too. So hopefully that we will see you on the road soon.
Yeah, once those travel restrictions are lifted, keep on trucking.
And we'll see you out there.